our guest. Good morning on this Monday. Hopefully, you're doing okay. J Dog, a little cooler or colder out there than the weekend, but a nice looking day to start our early Christmas week here on this Monday. We're live. Local, hey Alexa, hey Google, worldwide, play the pulse of an J Dog on the boards. J Dog looks like might be getting a little bit of a white Christmas, some snow. Looks like we'll come in tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. So that means if it holds Wednesday, Santa and his reindeer we might be getting a little bit of a white Christmas because a lot of this stuff washed away with the weather we had the other day. So hope you had a good weekend, J Dog. We have a busy show for you. We'll have more on some of the news talk and some of our regular contributors on this Monday morning. Here we go. But J-Dog, I'd be remiss if we didn't just talk a little bit on some of the really crazy football games, including last night. I have to be honest with you, Jake. It was a late game, so I did the old doze nodding off in the second half, and I saw a big lead for the Ravens. I go, oh boy, not much time left. Next thing you know, about a minute left, I switch, and Drake May and the Patriots are controlling a lead in the ball in the end, and they win that game. A big comeback for the Patriots in the second half, and then I'm crazy finish, and I'm sorry about your Packers. I really am. I mean that with the Chicago Bears. Oh my goodness! Wow.
Not a good sports weekend if you don't count the Blues beating the Panthers in Sunrise, the two-time champs in Sunrise. Then yeah, Cavs weren't any good this weekend. The Bills, when they beat the Browns, they didn't cover the spread on Bet This. CJ and I will talk about that because we're previewing Monday Night Football tonight. The Colts and the 49ers.
Colts 49ers.
Okay. But Siege had a good time. He saw his Eagles win. So
I watched a little bit of that. And J-Dog, I don't want to get into it right now as well, but you and CJ can. Steelers, Lions, that call at the end.
Yeah.
Did you watch it a few times?
I saw the call.
Did they have to make that call and determine the outcome?
I know. That's unreal.
I mean, the Lions, those fans and the coach and players must be livid.
They are. No, they are steaming right now. In fact, if the playoffs were to start, the Lions would be out. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost thinking, sometimes I really think because, my smarter, prettier, better half watches a pretty intense when she's watching. She always points out, J-Dog, I don't know if you can agree. There's holding almost on every play if you want to call it. You know what I mean? Unless you see the pad lift up or the actual grabbing of the shirt. But sometimes at the end like that, in a game like that, when I just think the Lions got it in there and you make a call that brings it, it's just you're playing a marginal call is determining the game, the outcome of the game. It's like, in the NHL in a tight battle in the last minute or two, unless it's outright, don't call a hooking call. Correct. Someone touches someone. If it's an outright tripping or, really bad, but let them play it out. Right?
Yes, no, absolutely. And, that was the marquee game yesterday. That's where Jim Nantz and Tony Romo were. So they were talking about it as well. Like, this is, these referees, man, they sometimes dictate the balance of these games, and that should not be the case.
So the Patriots wrap up a playoff spot.
They have clinched a playoff berth. Drake May has had his first 300-yard passing game in his young NFL career. The Patriots upset the Ravens, and they go to the playoffs for the first time in a few years. So,
yeah, all right. We'll see where it goes. And I guess Jets and Dolphins, is that what's up next for the Patriots or the last? Yeah. All right, J-Dog. A couple of the other stories we're jumping into. We're going to hear from Anna Brown, Citizens Count, talking about some of the stuff that happened last week that we kind of missed because of all the national news. Boy, a lot of news at the end of the week. The Brown University is sort of the culmination in Salem, New Hampshire. Just a sad but bizarre story. And it was pretty obvious to me with the suspect there, who, apparently took his own life in that storage locker, as we had for you the other night on our page. Disliked his former, where he went to school at Brown. He just didn't like the program, didn't like the campus. And obviously all these years later, something snaps, goes there. And those two young students, just so sad, such beautiful young people. And then of course the MIT professor, just the whole thing was bizarre. But that's a story that happened this week. Listen to the travel numbers from AAA. We're going to have more on this. 122 million people are going to be basically traveling. I guess they call the period of travel Saturday, this past Saturday, right through New Year's. 109 million by on the road, about 8 to probably closer to 9 million flying. And I think, J Dog, really, although our poll question, you want to ask this one because you think you're curious, because I don't think many people do work on Christmas, but obviously hospitals, public safety. So we'll ask this poll question up on X at the Pulse of an H. How do you want to word it? Do you have to work at all on Christmas Day? Is that what you want? Christmas Day? Is that what we're asking?
Are you working on Christmas Day? Yes
Okay.
or no?
Okay.
Powered by Alpine Gold.
That's right. AlpineGold.com. Use the Pulse at checkout, and shipping is free. AlpineGold.com for some silver and gold.
Have
But-
the results from last Friday's poll question, by the way, Jack, just
Take
came in.
Take it away.
Do you still send Christmas cards? Yes or no? This was a close one, Jack. 55.6% saying no, 44.4% saying yes.
All right. Not surprised. A lot of our polls up on X kind of reflect what I think the public opinion is. But 122 million hitting the road, I think we're going to start to see. And this snow tomorrow, when you start to hear about it, it's not like we're getting a big system or storm, but it doesn't take much to affect the roadways. The problem tomorrow is there's going to be extra traffic because people are hitting the road today, tomorrow. A lot of families already here. I talked to some buddies up in Meredith. The kids came in this weekend. They're here for the week. So I think tomorrow, certainly by Wednesday, I think Wednesday becomes kind of that ghost town Christmas Eve. And but it might be a little bit of snow, which spills into Wednesday for Thursday for a white Christmas. And then we're into New Year's. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. We're going to also update you on some of the other news talk as we get going on this Monday. And a lot of people out and about. Did anyone win that big Powerball, by the way? Not that I care, J-Dog.
No, 1.6 billion tonight.
Wow. All right. When we come back, we're going to check in with Anna Brown, Citizens Count. Why? Well, the local stuff. Concord, New Hampshire. We're at the end of the end of the year, basically. In Washington, Congress has adjourned, and that whole Affordable Care Act issue will kick into next year. Those tax credits set to expire. Anna Brown, Citizens Count, a little bit later on. Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, will look at the markets as we end the year. What do they mean? Do they tell you anything? And a little bit later on, Rory O'Neill and some of our regular contributors on this Monday. We are live and local here in New Hampshire, up into Maine, with additional FM signal strength up into Portland, 98.7 FM, HD2, 98.1 FM, 1270 AM. Lakes region, we've added an FM for you up there as well. In addition to 107.3 FM, 98.3 FM, HD2, and then 107.7 FM worldwide. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of NH. Back in a moment.
This holiday season, the Back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, J-Dog, as we get going, we got a lot going on. I'm going to bring in Anna Brown, the great one. Anna Brown, Citizens Count, citizenscount.org on this Monday morning. Happy early Christmas. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Jack. Yes, I don't know if we're going to get a white Christmas or not, but it's definitely feeling cold enough to be Christmas in New Hampshire for sure.
Yes, maybe a little bit of snow tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night for white Christmas. And I know you've been busy closing out the year, but we had State Senator Dan Innes. We were talking a little bit about what carries over into the new year. I asked him kind of how is the fiscal ship of New Hampshire. And he said, there are pockets, there are concerns on some of the money coming in and the cost, but he said overall pretty darn good. I noticed every New England state, the lead story is double-digit property tax growth, and they have all the taxes, including income and sales tax. But where are we at, and how are we ending the year locally at the State House in Concord, and what carries over into the next session?
Sure. So it is true, right? Our budget is it's not in terrible shape, right? But revenue has been coming in below projections. So that won't necessarily impact the upcoming legislative session so much as it sets the stage for the election and the next year. So when you're talking about things that are carrying over, though, there are some 2025 bills that relate to taxes and spending that are carrying over. Notably, there is a bill that is looking to cut business taxes. And they are recommending, the committee that looked at this bill is recommending, yes, go ahead and cut business taxes again, but we'll wait 1 year. We're going to push out another year further, which means that it wouldn't hit until well after the elections into the next budget cycle. So that's sort of an interesting tack, I thought, because Republicans then they can say, oh, yeah, we voted to cut business taxes, but they don't really have to worry about how this would impact revenue in the short term in terms of the very next budget that's coming up. It's sort of like, that's a problem for future people to worry about. And while it is true that business taxes have coincided with higher business tax revenue in New Hampshire, a lot of that was from out-of-state companies that are riding the highs of, consumer spending coming out of COVID-19, for example, and not necessarily spending that's happening here in New Hampshire, in particular with New Hampshire-based businesses. So that is a bill that is going to be coming up right away in January when they come back, and definitely relates to those budget issues you're talking about. I haven't seen other major tax changes that they want to implement in Concord, but there is a lot of interest in adding tax caps or budget caps that at the local level and saying that, okay, you're going to need a supermajority to come out to raise taxes further, or you're going to have to justify this in a certain way or add more information for taxpayers. So when you're talking about property taxes, I do think that there's going to be a lot of debate sort of about what localities can do in relation to property taxes. Yeah. And lastly, I will say there are a lot of bills that are going to be coming up in 2026 looking to add business taxes for various initiatives. So, for example, there was a bill I was looking at the other day that would add some tax breaks for data centers, looking to get data centers in New Hampshire. Of course, there are other bills looking to restrict data centers. And another bill that was looking to add tax breaks for childcare offerings, which is a big issue in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. And then also tax breaks for infrastructure development, another big issue in New Hampshire when you're looking at, say, water infrastructure for more housing. Since, of course, there's not a wide availability of public water and sewer, which would allow denser housing development. So business tax credits are kind of funny because it's like a way for the state to fund things without actually funding it necessarily. They're saying, oh, the businesses are paying for it, but it is kind of coming out of state coffers. So those are some interesting fiscal issues to watch.
Anna Brown, Citizens Count, citizenscount.org. Great nonpartisan resource for you on all stuff, local legislators, voting records, bills, the session. Anna, it's interesting. You're seeing some of what's happening in Congress, at least the theme of like one party threatening to impeach like a member of the cabinet or something else. It won't go anywhere. But here locally, I don't know all the details. We are going to have Michael Graham on later talking about this, but the Democrat executive counselor, I guess Karen Hill, there was some concerns about, something where one of the, Representative Sweeney is threatening or an impeachment bill against the counselor. And I don't know all about this, but it shows sort of the same kind of fighting we're seeing, in Washington and Congress. Are you aware at all of this story?
Yes.
What's
And
going
would
on
agree.
here? Because I don't know much about this other than Executive Counselor John Stephen recovering from that heart attack. Joe Kenny. I don't really know this council of the Democrat and what's going on with the, I guess, an attorney general probe about something, and then Representative Sweeney promising or saying he's going to bring up an impeachment article against her. What's going on?
Yes. So this is actually something that dates back several months. And so Executive Counselor Karen Lyatt Hill was working with some lawyer, or reaching out to lawyers, I should say, from her office related to, okay, can we help find some constituents for these new voting restrictions that have come into place? And so it was a little, you can argue appropriate or inappropriate. The Attorney General has come out and said, well, this wasn't illegal electioneering or anything like that. That was a recent release from their office. And I will say in general, inappropriate or not, it's definitely very unusual for there to be impeachment proceedings in New Hampshire. It has pretty much almost never happened in our history. Not to say like it's never come up, but it is extremely, extremely rare. And I would argue, you sort of alluded to this, that this is a bit of that sort of Washington politics trickling down to New Hampshire. Because let's be real, we've had plenty of other occasions when there's been maybe questionable things happening, but usually it doesn't rise to the level where the legislature says, "Oh, we're gonna impeach this person." Partly because we only have 2-year terms in New Hampshire, so there's often this. It's the same reason why we don't have recall elections. The argument is, okay, well, if someone's doing a crappy job, you're going to almost immediately get the chance for the public to weigh in, and really it should be the public who is voting one way or another on if someone should be in office. So it was a debate over her contacting law firms related to a lawsuit around new voting rights laws, or rather like voter ID and so on. And the Attorney General has found that, this is not prosecutable. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the legislature.
Real quickly, I don't think this would go anywhere, but when we had Senator Bradley on the show Friday and our regular retired Senate president, I thought he was referencing that in the next session, some Democrats were more openly talking about property taxes and trying to reintroduce or reopen the debate on an income or sales tax. And I was like, oh, really? Have you hearing anything about this? Because I can't imagine a worse thing, because I'm looking at Vermont, I'm looking at Maine and Mass with all the income and sales taxes, and everyone's complaining and going crazy and whining over double-digit property tax increases. But are you hearing anything about that?
The idea that the Democrats would openly get behind an income or sales tax in New Hampshire and have that as their flag on the hill right before an election season is not going to happen. They know that that's electoral suicide in New Hampshire. There are a couple bill requests that are looking to study different revenue methods in New Hampshire related to lowering property taxes. So that sort of opens the door. It says, well, we'd be willing to consider anything, like what's on the table, and some types of income taxes or fees or what's on, but a straight up income or sales tax, no, we don't see that coming.
And real quick, thank you, and hope you have a great Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you on the other side. Real quick, Anna Brown, Citizens Count. Do you think, in the first 3 months of the new year, we're going to see another Democrat, maybe someone who's run statewide with big name recognition, jumping in the race for governor, or not?
Oh my goodness. I am still surprised that we have not seen that happen yet, just because it is less than a year till the next general election, and you're going to need to be fundraising really aggressively against an incumbent. So last I heard, there was, a little bit of interest around Donovan Fenton, the current state senator from Keene. But I haven't heard anything in a couple of weeks, so I'm not sure, Jack. I feel like it must happen. It seems like the Democrats would want to have a more resourced candidate than John Kuiper, who, of course, was originally running as an independent. But I don't know. I guess strange new times. We're going to wait and see.
All right. Anna, make it a good one. Thank you on this Monday, Anna Brown. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Jack.
we come back. We're going to take a look at the markets on this day. Doug Tengden, top of the 10 o'clock, Neil Levesque, Institute of Politics. We'll kind of look at the national stuff as we get into the end of the year here. A little bit later on, Michael Graham, Rory O'Neill, CJ and J-Dog will have fun in the 11 o'clock hour. Plenty to talk about. Wow. And then Tom Raphael with some good news. J-Dog, I do want to take one moment. One thing I meant to mention on the Patriots towards the end, and I think it was in the last, let's just say, when you got the ball and you're trying to hold on to a lead, it's like minute 46 left. So you kind of you want to get that first down, right? And then you can down it. So Drake May at the end last night against Baltimore in a tough game when the Patriots make this comeback, really broke open, had a good run, and had the calm and the poise to basically slide down before the end zone just to kind of control the game and the clock. And then they downed it twice. The Patriots win the game. And in Baltimore, J-Dog, home of the Ravens in Baltimore, they were chance for May MVP in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And he is looking to be the real deal. You see these injuries, J-Dog, a couple bad injuries. Yeah, not good. There's never good, but a couple really bad ones. Then you look at these other quarterbacks and really makes you wonder, makes you think a little bit. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, worldwide and local, regional, national, by the pulse of an H. Back in a moment.
This is the Pulse of
We'll have that at 11:20.
What do you? Well, we'll come back to this, but what do you think? Here we go. A couple games left. Other than the Patriots doing extraordinarily well, what's the biggest surprise for you, Dog, in the NFL this season? Would it be the sort of the collapse for this season of the Chiefs or not?
Carolina Panthers.
Oh, doing well.
They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs.
Unbelievable.
I thought they'd win maybe 5 games.
Yep.
They're going to win nine or 10 games, and they're going to go to the playoffs.
Well, the other one, though, I would add to that,
Jaguars
the Jaguars, yes, who beat the Broncos.
in Denver. They've done it before.
J-Dog is, I know you don't want to hear this, but the Bears are a surprise.
Well, Ben Johnson might be the coach of the year. He may get that nod. And the Seahawks and the Rams are surprising in the sense of they'd be, have this many wins this far. Well, not the Rams so much, but the Seahawks for sure. Thought the Seahawks, might be sneaking in on a wild card. And they might be sneaking in on the best team in the NFL. So.
One of the other stories, Dog, I want to touch upon. Well, you mentioned it during the your time before you talked about Monday Night Football. You and CJ will do that later. But our mobile app, the Pulse of an H, download that because we'll be off this Friday, day after Christmas. But you can get some Bretton Woods tickets, and I really enjoyed Friday's segment from the Mount Washington Observatory. We Misha talked a lot about how the outreach, and people don't know this, but the mission of education and weather observation with the Mount Washington Observatory sitting on top of Mount Washington reaches out into our schools, other groups, hiking forecasts, but really the educational piece of this is wonderful. And I encourage you to try and get some Bretton Woods ski tickets because this season, by the way, other than, was it Friday, J-Dog, the wind and the rain? Was that Friday? It was Friday, right? Kind of washing away a lot of this. It has been, excuse me, a good early start to winter and skiing, even though yesterday, I guess, officially the first day of winter. So the ski areas, the people forget it's the stores on the way into the ski area, the rentals, the inns, the hotels, the convenience stores, the restaurants, all this stuff feeds off a good winter season for tourism in New Hampshire. And when we have more snow and cold, it is more productive and profitable for all those businesses that have to stay in business. When we don't have a good start to really Christmas week, it's really hard for a lot of these businesses and ski areas and resorts to turn a profit. So they're already having, if you talk to anyone, I talked to someone who said that some of these ski areas are having really like midwinter snow, and that's a good thing. Even now, after Friday's warming up windy rain, we're getting a little more snow and cold. Today's cold, so they're cranking out the snow, and of course, we're into that. AAA saying 122 million people have already started to hit the roadways mostly and air, you name it, to travel. And this is the week right into next week, New Year's. So busy time of year. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. As we get going, J-Dog, I did want to also mention one of our regular contributors, Doug Tengden, will be coming up. A couple of the other stories we're watching is Venezuela. I know it may seem out of sight, out of mind, but yet another oil tanker seized under basically a bogus flag. So violating sanctions in terms of this oil, the United States cracking down on this. And you know who's paying attention to that? You know who's paying attention to that oil? Tehran, Putin, China, because a lot of that Iranian, they're getting oil from Venezuela and those oil tankers. The U.S. is a full-blown blockade. Full naval blockade of Venezuela, and we have a heavy presence there, Air Force carrier, you name it, and keep an eye on that. But as far as other news coming out of Washington, Congress, Brad Card will be joining us tomorrow. Congress already, they're back, they're out. So the Affordable Care Act debate and those tax, remember the whole government shutdown, the COVID era tax credits, subsidies set to expire this next week before, at the end of the year. So, excuse me, the Affordable Care Act, not so affordable. It does amaze me, politically speaking, as an observation to kind of get you going a little bit this morning, get me going. Democrats are so fixated on extending the tax credits because the Affordable Care Act is going up, but no one talks about why is the Affordable Care Act going up? Why is the Affordable Care Act not expensive? Why is the Affordable Care Act not expensive? They just want to continue the tax credit so it's not as expensive, the increases for those people on it here in New Hampshire and beyond. But why is the Affordable Care Act so expensive? And when Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was sold to the public, didn't they say it was basically going to be free? I mean, it wouldn't cost anything to keep your own doctor. Does anyone remember this, or was it just me? Was it just me? It was not going to be free technically, but it was going to be very affordable, very accessible. So the primary objective was to make coverage accessible to more people, especially the nearly 50 million uninsured Americans at the time. Now, obviously, having health insurance is going to stop people from going to the emergency room when they get sick because it costs the system money. But the Affordable Care Act was really promoted to be affordable. And, it was called, whether it was the former, President Obama, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. But why no one talks about why it's not affordable and why has it gone up and what keeps it up? So, this is going to be a debate into the new year. Make no mistake about it. The whole government shutdown, in my opinion, I said this in the beginning, was really just juxtaposed and positioning by the Democrats for the midterms, because they're going to claim that the Republican, no matter who's in these races, in the federal races, wants to take away your health care. That's because everyone's on the Affordable Care Act. That's how they're going to present it. Not everyone is, by the way. A lot of employers, a lot of people have Anthem, Harvard Pilgrim in the market. There's not enough competition and transparency, but not everyone's on the Affordable Care Act. But they're going to say Republicans want to take away your health care. They want to run on this. Make no mistake about it. They want to run on the health care issue in the midterms, Democrats. And they won't tell you this, but I think Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are actually quietly doing the happy dance that there was no agreement reached to extend the tax credits. I really do believe that, because in Washington, unfortunately, the political motivation to win an election, to get reelected, to stay in office outweighs the altruistic goal of providing more accessible and affordable health care. They won't tell you that. They won't admit it. But really what they care about is winning elections. And when they embarked in the government shutdown, when they voted 14 times not to reopen the government, after they jumped up and down when Elon Musk was running DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, keep your hands off our federal workers. Keep your hands off. Remember these protests right here at home? Keep your hands off our federal workers. But then it was okay for the longest government shutdown to see those federal workers not paid, including the civilian contractors at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. It was okay because it was politically convenient to fit the goal of making the health care and the Affordable Care Act the number one issue for Democrats in the upcoming November midterm elections on the federal side. It is the number one issue, and they don't want it to go away, and they want to run against Republicans, and they're going to run on the side of more affordable health care. They won't talk about how they make the Affordable Care Act more affordable. They'll just say the Republicans want to take away your health care. This is what you can buckle up for in the new year. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. We're going to get a check-in on the market side of things. Doug Tengden will be weighing in. First hour, of course, we come to you on YouTube as well. We have it all for you, the Pulse of an H. We have on Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. We have our poll question up on X, the Pulse of an H, YouTube channel, YouTube, the first hour of the show. You can watch streaming live, the YouTube channel, the Pulse of an H. We got you covered. We have you covered right here, and we'll continue. What other story is going to carry over at the end of the year? We'll have some thoughts on that tomorrow. And, of course, we'll be on next Monday and Tuesday as well. But we're a lot of this just is more of the same, folks. It's just going to continue, especially nationally, the divisiveness. And just a lot of people, I think, during the Christmas break and New Year's take a big break, take a big sigh of relief, turn off the phone, the so-called smartphone, turn it right off, and try and chill out a little bit, because it's just so much of the same. So we'll keep you posted on some of the news talk that will survive the Christmas New Year's week. Powerball jackpot still about 1.6 billion, fifth largest in U.S. history. All right, we'll take a quick break. Come back with Doug. Top of the 10 o'clock, Paul Steinhauser is going to join us live, the quick hit and check in from Fox. And then, of course, Neil Vec, one of our political analysts and all-stars. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment.
New on the pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we are back on this Monday as we get going, and a lot going on. Travel, 100 and what I say earlier, 122 million hitting the road, mostly on the road, about 8 million flying between now and New Year's, and that might be good for the economy. We'll see. Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors on the economic side. Doug, good Monday morning. How are you?
I am great, Jack. How are you?
Doing okay. Doing all right for a Monday, I guess. We might see a white Christmas tomorrow night in terms of snow for Wednesday into Thursday. But where are we ending? What are the markets looking at? The feeling is next year might be a little better. We heard that from our Bank of America friend, Stephen Junot. But what are you seeing on the markets, and where do things kind of end, and what carries over into next year?
Well, I think the economy is ending okay. We've talked about, the economy has to deal with three different shocks so far this year: the shock in terms of workforce, the shock in terms of tariffs, and the shock in terms of federal spending. And it seems to have gotten through that okay. Very often, when the economy deals with a shock, it adjusts and then moves forward a little more strongly. The market has looked through that and said, "Oh yeah, we'll get through this," and the market has just rallied. I would not be surprised if the market then is slower next year while the economy speeds up. I think the economy is in decent shape and looks to improve. The market has done extremely well and probably will give something back. We've had 4 years in a row of double-digit returns, which is really, we haven't seen that since the 90s.
Yeah. And then what do you, because it does, how do I say this, tie into people's feelings on consumer confidence and the affordability question, the cost of living. A lot of people, and I think you'd agree, it feels like the middle to upper income are driving a lot of the spending, and in terms of the cost of living and things being expensive. And, when you hear about the markets and these really good numbers, a lot of people, even if they're indirectly invested in the markets, don't feel like this is their thing or they're benefiting from this. They feel it's like, the big players. So, the markets being up, I know it's good for everything, better than hearing the markets are 500 down this morning, there's big sell-offs, but how does this translate to the average person who's working hard in the middle?
Well, the average person who's working hard in the middle can say, hey, my retirement savings are doing well. And maybe I don't have to be as worried about the cost of retirement, the cost of college for my kids, because my savings are doing well. But that assumes that they're doing some planning and they're setting some money aside for those things. And that's of course, a long-term issue is, are people really planning for retirement? Are people really planning for college? Are they saving for that first house? If they are, then the market has been a help to them. If they're not, then this is an indication, well, maybe they can get started.
All right. What else are you looking at? I mean, we've seen a couple of the rate reductions, rate cuts, Federal Reserve by the end of the year. So I guess it totals a half a point, a 2.25s. But, I heard a story on the national news, Gordon Deals in for Mike Pomps out this morning on a mortgage. A fixed 30-year mortgage is down to 6.21, 6.22%. These interest rate cuts the Fed's done bank to bank really haven't spilled down yet to a home buyer borrowing like on a 30-year fixed mortgage. And then the other point was people should shop their mortgages because they might save $100 a month, and people don't shop mortgages enough. But maybe thoughts on those two fronts.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that we could talk about. The first is the Fed's policy does work with lags, but it will work. And by lowering short-term rates, the Fed is making banks profitable again. And when the small banks are profitable, then they get out and they lend. The big banks have always been profitable, but the big banks are being what big banks are, and they'll give you a hard time. If you want a big pen from the lobby, they'll give you a hard time for that. The small banks are really the engine of small business lending, and they're going to make loans, and small businesses will be able to grow because credit is going to be available. And the market has started to anticipate that, and so small stocks have done extremely well. The second thing I would talk about, Jack, and this is kind of in your wheelhouse, but healthcare costs, the Affordable Care Act, which is, one of the most misnamed acts since the Inflation Reduction Act, both of those are doing the exact opposite of what they pretend to do, because it did nothing on the supply side. It does nothing to increase the supply of healthcare. If we want to reduce costs, we need to reduce costs not by giving people more money, but by making more supply available. It's the same with education. It's the same with housing. You don't make housing more affordable by getting more people to buy houses. You make housing more affordable by building more houses, by making it easier to build houses. The same with education. You don't make education more affordable by giving people money. You make it more affordable by making education more available. So I don't know if that speaks to you at all, but just do something. I think the Republicans could do something by focusing on supply rather than focusing on demand.
Yeah, interesting. And again, I don't know how so much is local, like local housing, local supply, local costs, New England versus other markets. Real estate's local. I mean, it's hard to come up with a policy. I mean, interest rates are something that's across the board. Yes, people who are going to borrow, there's an interest rate set by the market and the Fed, but housing supply and things like that, it's also local. It's very local. And we have in New England here, certainly New Hampshire and Southern Maine, I talk to realtors all the time, and we still see this out-of-state buyer sniffing and shopping around, coming in from New York or Connecticut or different state that's more expensive, overregulated, overtaxed. Massachusetts still, California, they're coming in and they're gobbling up homes that we think are very expensive here, and they don't, and it's driving the prices up.
Right. But we have plenty of land in New Hampshire. I mean, we make it easier to build. Make it easy.
Yeah, but then
don't make it so you have to start a GoFundMe account just in order to get the permitting necessary to necessary to build.
But you and I know, and that's not a federal thing, it's a local thing again, that a lot of these cities and towns, whether it's accessible dwelling units to go on someone's property or zoning to put in more affordable housing or apartment building, these towns will complain about, we don't have affordable housing. When push comes to shove, they don't want affordable housing in their backyard. It's just, they don't want that.
Well, there are plenty of federal things like the Army Corps of Engineers talking about water and wetlands. You know, if there's a pothole on your driveway and you put gravel in the pothole, suddenly you've violated a wetlands. There's plenty of things that the federal government could do to make it easier.
Yeah, but you were even saying, like, in your neck of the woods in the Upper Valley, what is the acreage zoning if someone wants to buy a new home, like in Hanover, New Hampshire? Is it a half acre?
Well, in a rural area, it's 10 acres. It used to be 3, and they could certainly move it back to 3 if they wanted more affordable housing.
Right. So, do they really want it?
Exactly. And you know, NIMBYism is an issue, but NIMBYism can be dealt with at the state legislature level,
right.
And NIMBYism could be dealt with at the federal level through incentives. Provide incentives rather than subsidies. Provide incentives for things that we know will create more supply. And there are dozens of proposals out there from think tanks on both sides to improve supply, and you know, just Google abundance, you know, for the Democrats, and there are plenty of abundance Democrats out there who would say, yeah, let's build things, let's make things like that we can actually do stuff rather than have to regulate it 5 ways from Sunday.
Yeah. All right. Have a good Christmas and week, and happy, healthy stuff for you as we head into next week. We'll catch you next Monday. Doug Tengden, worldmarketadvisors.com. Thank you, Doug.
Jack, Merry Christmas.
All right. I guess we're going to have a lot of good Christmas music on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day here. And J-Dog, I hope, it's going to be it's a short week. Surprised, I guess, the number of people driving doesn't surprise me nationally, of the 122 million people. And that's just that's an estimate, a good estimate from AAA. They always put out good numbers for the holiday. 122 million people traveling, more than about 109 million by road. That makes sense because people travel regionally. Like they might go 2 or 3 hours in Pennsylvania, Ohio to relatives, loved ones, or another state. But 8 million people are going to be flying between now and I guess New Year's. So we got a lot going on. We'll keep an eye on all the above for you on this Monday. Coming up, Paul Steinhauser. He reports nationally for Fox News. He's going to do a quick check-in with us. Neil Levesque's going to check in. Michael Graham in the next hour. Rory O'Neill in the 11 o'clock hour, 24/7 national news. J-Dog and CJ are going to go to the zone. Bet this, a lot of crazy games, a lot of crazy endings. Great ending last night. I kind of fell asleep in the third or fourth quarter of the Patriots-Ravens game and then woke up and realized in the end the Patriots had pulled off, I guess, the second biggest comeback in the second half. I guess 14 points since that Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl win in the second half, and they came back and beat the Ravens to clinch a playoff spot. Drake May, the real deal. What a team. Good. And Stephon Diggs, big game there last night. Patriots, the real deal. We'll keep you posted. Monday Night Football, J-Dog and CJ as well. Tom Raffio will have some good news at the end of the 11 o'clock. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an 8. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. We're back top of the 10 o'clock on 22 days into December. Welcome to winter.